Max Gorlin, Melbourne Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
This is Nat Fyfe from the Fremantle Footy Club.
Trent Cotchin from the Richmond Footy Club.
Scott Pendlebury from the Collingwood Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Patrick Cooch from the Carlton Footy Club.
It's Rory Sloane here from the Adelaide Crows.
This is Tom Mitchell. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
One of the busiest clubs during the 2024 AFL trade and free agency period was Port Adelaide. They saw a two-time All-Australian Dan Houston depart the club, but they've bought a number of players and picks back into the club. One of those players came from Collingwood, Joe Richards. He's small to medium forward that's got some wheels about him, but is this going to be a good move for Port Adelaide? Can they, in the aggregate, balance out the loss of Dan Houston? And is Joe Richards fantasy friendly for us in 2025? We're going to talk about all those things and more on this episode as we review every player that moves clubs during the 2024 trade and free agency period. You got MJ here from the Coaches Panel. I do hope you're enjoying this series so far. Joe burst on the scene for us probably this year. As a fantasy football coach and as a fantasy football channel in general, he was definitely a player that was of high interest for us. And the reason being is he burst onto that club scene midway through the season, popped some nice scores, gave us a super coach ton, a 90-plus score in AFL fantasy, was at a basement price, and we thought, we've got a winner here. He did play 9 games this year for Collingwood, but was very much distant from best 22. If we think about what this could mean for Collingwood moving forward and how he got into the side, well, politely, he is a handy small forward. Let's not play down what Joe can do. He is a more than handy small forward. Got some nice goal craft and smarts about him. But for Collingwood this year, there could not have been more injury concerns to hit that team than if they'd even dreamed or hoped or tried. They are bursting with depth at this small to medium forward space. Yes, Jamie Elliott's coming towards the end of his career rather than the start of it, but he's not dropping out of that side anytime soon. Just 12 months ago, they traded for Lachie Schultz, and then you've got a Norm Smith medalist in Bobby Hill and Beau McCreary. And so for Richards to have got the spot in the side, it required injuries and suspensions. And there was just no way for him getting back into that team, barring that to happen again. So he was destined for depth at Collingwood. And that's why he was really happy to take up the option and opportunity at Port Adelaide. And even with Joe available, he still didn't play all those games when he was fit and there were still injuries available. So was destined for depth. I don't think Collingwood hurt in this space whatsoever, especially considering that he became a piece that helped them land Dan Houston, which significantly improves their ball movement coming out of the back half and up through the wings. I think they're pretty happy to see Joe depart the club. From a Port Adelaide perspective, what does this mean? Well, it's another new dimension to their forward line. Charlie Dixon coming out. I'm forecasting Jack Lukosius to play forward for them. That's where he wants to play, and it's, I think, where Port Adelaide more desperately need him to play. Mitch Georgiades looks like a player. Willie Rioli, we know he's a very, very damaging small forward. But then it's really just been bit players because we can't trust or know what's going to happen with Todd Marshall. They've tried guys like McEntee through there, Mead through there. And clearly they're not really thrilled with the smalls that they've got. So Joe comes in and adds a little bit of another dimension to this forward line if he can make his way into the best 22, which I don't think is an absolute lock. But he would, if he can get into this 22, add a new dimension to really take some of that pressure off Willie Rioli as the only small forward that's got goal-scoring presence and pressure about them. Joe does have that. And so if they're looking for new and more avenues to goal, Joe should be able to leapfrog those other players that have been in the best 22 who are, from a smalls perspective, such as McEntee and Mead, they're for more pressure rather than goal-scoring impact. And that's what Joe's going to be able to bring. While he is a pressure forward, it's his goal-scoring and ability to kick goals from great crumbing situations, read the ball off marking situations well, is probably why it's not locked best 22, but if they want more goal-scoring than pressure, Joe's going to get into that Port Adelaide side and add a new dimension to a forward line that really is in a reinvigoration phase at this stage. Is Joe fantasy relevant for us this year? Well, he showed he could pop some scores for us. A 90, what was his top score? A 94 in AFL fantasy. He did give us a ton in Supercoach with a 107. There was another ton in there as well. So he's got some skills about him. And Port Adelaide do try to maintain the ball a fair bit. But to me, it's a waiver wire at best in draft, and definitely not someone in classic I want any interest in. Coming in at that sort of 50 to 50s average, I just don't see why you'd go anywhere near that when the incredible value that we've got, and a number of those value options have also moved clubs this offseason. I just don't see why you're going anywhere near Joe, politely. Sure, a deep draft where pretty much if you could play AFL, you need them in a draft that's deep, like a dynasty league on keeper. Okay, yeah, sure. Maybe I'll hear that argument, but for every other format, no, you're just not going anywhere near Joe. But what's your take on Joe Richards as a player and as an addition to the Port Adelaide Football Club? Comment below if you're watching this on YouTube and let me know. And be sure to give this video a thumbs up, like, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. These audio podcasts are accompanying the video episodes as well. So if you've gone back and listened to a couple of them, the good news is they're all still there. It gives you some off-season fantasy footy content to listen to. And while you're there, you can get more off-season fantasy footy content by becoming a Patreon. Every week, Kane and I are dropping an episode of our brand new series, The Top 50 Keeper Ranks. It's the 5th year running we've done it, where we rank by tier who we believe are the 50 prospects that you want to own most in a keeper league. We're enjoying doing this series for you. Keeper league coaches, this is an absolute must of a series. If you want to get that, join at any tier level of a Patreon and you can get access to that. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in yet again. We can't wait to be back with you again real soon, talking about another player that's moved clubs this trade and free agency period.